Hello and welcome. I'm Tim Zawislack, and today we're exploring the evolving landscape of omnichannel retail and digital transformation. I'm joined by my dear friend Kristoffer Reiter, head of creative at Cohesive Whole, where he's been leading creative initiatives since 2016. I can't believe it's almost 10 years. Kristoffer launched his agency and has driven increases in brand visibility and customer engagement for over 15 brands through some pretty cool customer experience and brand storytelling. He's one of the pioneers in that space, in that stuff. He's grown his team to 10 members and has integrated freelancers and some really nifty AI ML stuff to enhance creative production. He's been a leader, a true thought leader in content-centered marketing strategies that have actually resulted in increased brand appreciation. And he's one of these rare birds in our space that gets business metrics. And he's able to very, very elegantly synthesize what he does from the creative brand storytelling to how that actually flows through an organization and ultimately through to a P&L. He spent some time at QVC where he really mastered the art of surprise and delight to storytelling to audiences. And above all, being Swedish, he champions the power of simple, authentic messaging in a marketing world that's often very, very cluttered. So, I mean, this simplicity and elegance is literally in his blood. Kristoffer, other than being the true pride of Sweden, would you like to tell us a little more about yourself?
It's so awesome. Thank you for that introduction. Phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal.
Phenomenal.
Yes, phenomenal. Absolutely. I lived in a country. Let's just go back for a second. Like I lived in Sweden. Sweden is, and for everybody who knows, like Sweden has a really high living standard. Yes, but they also have something called the law of Jante, and the law of Jante is kind of like built on the socialistic society in the sense that everybody are equal. But when everybody are equal, it also means that nobody can be different or creative in a different way. So for me, for growing up, I felt a little bit misplaced. You could put it that way, lightly. So when I had the opportunity to come with IKEA to the States, I was like, all right, I'm game. I'll take it. And I traveled around for a year with IKEA, opening store all in 16 different states, and felt like this country is amazing. The opportunity to do something here is individually based. So if you have the ambition, you can actually get somewhere here.
That was your
So
first
that's fine.
window into the US, though, was coming here for IKEA.
Yep. First year, I was just like one suitcase, hotel left the hotel for a full year. Yeah, it was amazing. I got to see so much, ate stuff, but it was really interesting. And then when they offered me a job, I was like, yep, went home, sold the condo, gave away the furniture, packed my clothes and moved to the States. That was it. 2 suitcases of clothes and off I went. So that's like what the interesting thing with shifting from one culture to another teaches you to be insanely humble, because you have to start over from scratch. And I think that is something that have been very helpful for me in the rest of my career, to understand that everything is different and you have to continue to stay curious, because the only way to actually be able to deliver something good. So I think that smack in my face when I came here was really, really a good thing for me.
You mentioned humility and curiosity, and we've worked together over the years, and you may remember hearing me say once or twice. I mean, two of the most intelligent things somebody can say to me is, "I don't know, and I need your help." And working with you over the years and sitting across the table from you, those to me were always what made you a really, really awesome person in your role and helped you, I think, to understand the breadth and depth of a broader organization and how your sort of seat played into that. I'm curious as we sort of get going here. I'd love to just get your thoughts on, the marketing landscape has become so cluttered and so loud and noisy and everything. And I'm curious your thoughts on developing assets and developing campaigns that are quick, fast, and simple. Maybe not as a replacement of a big tentpole thing, but definitely as a complement to it.
Yeah. It's very interesting, because when I started in marketing way back, you created one big brand campaign and then that one was repetitively shown for a solid year or two. And everybody was leaning into this massively expensive campaign. And it was one tagline, it was maybe 2 or 3 themes, and that was it. And I love that today we have transitioned into almost like a book. So you have a headline, you have a title, and then you have 40 different chapters that touches upon where you want to go as a brand, but with different angles. So, and that's what I feel like we have transitioned, thanks to social media, maybe, we have transitioned into somebody that's actually very purposefully creating different stories under one umbrella. And to me, that is what marketing today is and should be all about. Because we don't have only one story to tell anymore. There's so many different aspects and there's so many different cultures we want to touch upon that one brand campaign, like the one perfect brand campaign, like the what's up, like that doesn't fly anymore. You have to twist your message in various different ways to actually be relevant. Because I think that's the other thing too. Before, in the 90s and early 2000s, we could be cool. Today, you can't really be cool anymore. We can be relevant, and that becomes more valuable, and it's more brand value to being relevant in your society than to be cool.
Talk a little bit, if you would. You're hitting one of my favorite words, which is relevance. And you'll have brands that want to chase awareness. And I'm not so sure how many people, when you have these big giant legacy brands, without naming them, they're chasing brand awareness. Everybody's aware of these brands. It's not an awareness thing, it's a relevance thing.
Yes.
And I'm just curious your thoughts to just unpack sort of how you think of that and how you sort of lead clients, in helping with that.
Yes, yeah, you're absolutely right. Relevance. It was a very interesting. I'm going to give you two examples. First one was Oakley. When I worked with Oakley, it's supposed to be a 3-month gig, ended up being 4.5 years. What it started off with when I came
You
there,
just never left. Is what it was. You just didn't leave.
Exactly. They never left until they got a new CEO, and then we had to kick them all out. But and
Oh,
then I
yeah.
went. Yeah, but it was they wanted so desperately to be heard, not be relevant, but be heard. That's what they're saying, and they wanted to be sports oriented. But what to me is like you take a brand that's stuck in the 80s and that's trying to be cool because they're stuck in that thinking. We looked at the brand, the leadership and I said to them, like, you're not a eyewear company. By definition, you are not an eyewear company. You are a lens technology company. And if you change your perception of yourself and say, we lead the way in lens technology, because, for example, they never launched this product, but they actually figured out a lens that can make a colorblind person see all colors. And that they weren't interested in doing. So it's like they didn't understand the value of it. I said, no, what you're showing is that your R&D team is beyond any other company in the world because there's a bunch of technology nerds in there. And those are the guys you should push. So we created the campaign Prism around lens technology called Prism.
Yeah.
And that took them from -4 to +17 in sales.
Yeah, I remember that. And I remember back in the day, they were really stuck on the extreme sports and that, Sean White, like those days. I remember that. And they were really pushing that pretty hard. But it was, I agree with you. They had this amazing, amazing R&D and technology, which is tons of the brightest people on the planet in that space. So really what you're saying is, you help them to really see, no pun intended, see what they had in their own backyard and then go bring that to market and go mechanize that.
Yes. And think about that, what you just said about the athletes. So they took this super athletes that nobody can connect to emotionally because they are up here and we're down here, right? So we can't on an emotional level connect to them because we know we can never get to their level, right? So they just went for the athletes. And I said, skip that, go after the technology because that everybody can connect to the technology. Everybody can feel there's a relevance of that technology in my life, whether I'm fishing, surfing, skiing, whatever it is, right? So then I went to QVC, and QVC works with all these different famous celebrities like Martha Stewart, Naomi Watts, Kate Hudson, all these people, again, unreachable celebrities, right? And they did this campaign and they had zero. Actually, they had to score 0 in customer thinking of QVC as their first choice of retailer. So I said, all right, let's skip all the celebrities and let's do an ad campaign for a quarter where we utilize the customer as our model. Just like, you remember how Dove did this Real Beauty way back? I stole that idea, basically. and said, like, let's do it. We went from 0 to 10% in customer choosing QVC as their
Huge.
first choice of retailer in 3 months. But then the reorg happened and out I went.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, is like when you're disconnected to your audience, you think you need to go higher and higher. But where you actually need to go, you need to drop the credit and go back down to who's actually shopping my stuff.
It's fascinating. And, it ties back to something that you and I grew up on, pushing brand.com sites and creating experiential stuff on brand.com sites. And it's interesting. Back in the day, the brand.com site was, in many cases, the cash register. It was always part temple of the brand, but it was a pretty meaningful cash register.
Yeah,
Today, I think it's become less so. What it's become, in the day of, now the days of Amazon and Walmart.com and Target and so on, all the marketplaces. Talk a little bit, if you would, about the value of a brand.com site, through the lens of, hey, that's going to be sort of an elevator stop on the customer's journey. She may or may not buy there. She's very likely not to buy there at this point because she trusts Amazon. Things are going to show up at her house tomorrow or the next day, best price and whatever. But basically, that brand.com site is still relevant, but it's serving a very, very sort of different touch point on the journey.
completely. Yeah. Because that's where, if you think about it now, transactions are moved to Amazon.com because I can get the stuff tomorrow, which the brand site never can deliver that fast because they don't have that operational excellence like Amazon does. So forget it. It's the home for storytelling. It's where I would go from social media. So the short snippet of 30 seconds that you tell a customer about something there is where you take me to brand.com, and that's where you tell the full story. And that's where you build the stories around your brand to make yourself relevant. And then you push them off to Amazon to shop. Like, I think Patagonia does a decent job at telling this story and focusing on, like, what do they stand for and what do they do. Like, that's a great example of it. Or Apple is another great example of, like, how they promote their product. But the actual transaction, well, it happens in the store, or you're sure you can order online on Apple.com. But it's truly where I commit to their product. That's what happens on brand.com. So it's storytelling.
You're moving into omnichannel and physical spaces, which is where you've done just wild stuff. I mean, 75% of all retail transactions are still done out of retail. And, there's debates, how much that's going to move in the coming years and this and that. It's always still going to be it's always going to be more than 50%, right? You're not going to have more than 50% go digital. It's just not possible. The infrastructure, it's just, you have tens of thousands of points of distribution. They're not going anywhere. You know what? There's more Walmart stores than there ever have been. There's more Target stores, et cetera, et cetera. But talk a little bit about, and this is coming from me, the digital guy, your sort of thoughts on data integration in creating true seamless omnichannel opportunities with some challenges and opportunities. Because obviously it's not all just, you wave a wand over it and the stuff happens.
No, exactly. I'm on LinkedIn, which I kind of regret sometimes because I hate LinkedIn because it turned into self-promoting site that we talk about how our career have moved forward or how successful we are at something, or even some personal stuff. I feel like it really lost its purpose. So I wrote a piece on it the other week because what I feel is what I discovered over the years and what I feel really passionate about now is that the store's role is truly a validation of what the customer service is all about. And it is my physical space where I can have a dialogue and interaction with a customer the way they read brand.com. And if you look at like Gen Z or Alpha, they're asking for more personal interaction, physical interaction with other human beings. They look for that more than any of the previous generations. So the store actually have a really great purpose because now the store could be a dialogue, a room for a dialogue between a customer and a representative of the brand. So But
Yes.
to make that successful, you really have to be cautious of your $12 an hour part-timer that's only working there for beer money. Like that doesn't fly anymore. So you kind of have to transition it. The other thing I think is really important with a physical store, if you think it from an omni-channel, everybody has started learning that I can never find my size in a store of the basics. I will go online to do that. So utilize your store for limited edition, special collection, capsules, whatnot that you don't know if it's going to work. Push that out because you're already paying rent for the space. So
Yeah.
utilize the store for something different. Because if you switch the store every month for new capsules, you're going to get the traffic you want. Because now the customer knows that I can only find that there. And I love that because Swatch just did this. Swatch did a collaboration with Omega.
Yes.
And I love Swatch because Swatch has been like the enfant terrible in the Swiss watch community forever. And they are trying new things, kind of like Supreme did in US. Like they went to Mercedes to say, we want to build the smallest car in the world. And then we want to do it with you. And Mercedes were like, okay, game on. And there came the smart car. It's literally a Mercedes for a third of the price that only fits 2 people. It's fantastic. I can park straight in instead of trying to, how you park on normally. Now they went to Omega and say, yeah, we want to take your $20,000, what is it, Seamaster or whatever it's called. Yeah,
Yes.
and turn it into $250 limited edition watch. And that's it. Well, and they, of course, Omega won't say no because now they reach a new audience. But at the same time, this watch was only released in the stores.
And it was going to be an omni-channel release. And as soon as they saw the lines, right,
Yeah.
they said,
Yeah.
Like, but isn't that amazing, though? I mean, you bring up a very salient point about Gen Z, Gen Alpha. I think there's just so much just exhaustion. And I sort of knew this was going to happen of being in front of the screens and doing nothing but just virtual stuff all day long. I mean, you're seeing a spike in dogs, by the way. You're seeing an increased interest in some of that generation want to go into the trades. Like, and it's amazing how some of this stuff has come full circle. It really, really is. And if the people that want to just sit in it and bemoan the demise of retail, undifferentiated retail, sure. I saw a piece recently, Banana Republic, like they're white noise. They started out as truly experiential retail. They really, really did. I mean, they had the Jeeps in the store and the crazy safari hats and the whatever, but they morphed into something that was basically neither fish nor fowl. They're playing in between price points. Retail price points better than anybody. There's like dead zones of price points, and they unfortunately sort of landed themselves in a lot of these dead price point zones where they're not premium, they're above Zara, they're above fast fashion, definitely not like in luxury. And it's like, what do you do with that? And it's totally undifferentiated, unfortunately, because it's great heritage, it's got great IP. It just needs some of that, recatalyzation. And it's amazing the brands that really get retail. Like, wow. I mean, and by the way, look at some of these restaurants, where I live, where you live. I mean, the great restaurants, it's amazing. You'll have great restaurant line out the door because there's a band, because there's something that like the consumer that she can latch onto and like, this is real, I can experience it. But the restaurant down, with the same food, by the way, the restaurant the next door with basically the same food, like, we've 30 tables. Which one do you want? Like on a Saturday night, it's crazy. So it's amazing. Yes. The people that get this, it's not dead.
And if you
go ahead.
Think about that. They opened a sushi joint in Philly, and they released their seating, and it's only fixed price. It's a tasting menu. He doesn't have a Michelin star yet, but he will get one. And they are releasing a 24-hour window for the next month's seating, and they're sold out within 2 hours. So they figured out how to create a moment in time where people look forward to something. And the FOMO trend that everybody wants to be part of by thinking wide and broad, they figured out how to narrow it down to 24 hours. And I love that. That is the best thing ever. Because now they created an interest. They created an aura around the total experience that is just beyond everybody L. And I want to say something back to Oakley. Oakley, when I started, had 430 SKUs, different items, right? And they also had a custom program that had 1 million different solutions that you could design the glasses to. When we worked with them, I said, go down to 150 SKUs, kill everything else, because the sell-through was like 0.8 to 1.2. So like you couldn't tell what was good or bad of anything. So I say, take your bestsellers, your heritage frames, cut it down to 150, and the sell-through start improving like nothing else, because now there's too many options out there. That's one of the problems I feel with a lot of customers today, is that we're trying to, like Banana, have everything under the sun for them, but then nobody's interested anymore because they can't make a decision. So
it's so true. Go ahead.
I decided I'm gonna start an underwear brand, because one thing I learned from Jeff Bezos is that stop creating an innovation. Stop trying to figure out something that nobody have seen before and create that, like the car with 3 wheels, or like none of that will ever work. It will be a PR thing. It will get a lot of marketing, but after that, it's not gonna work. So then I said, okay, what product is out there that every man on the planet needs, but is so underappreciated from a fashion sense? So I said, all right, I'm going to start an underwear brand. And the underwear brand is called Banana Hammock, because it takes care of your banana. And
Fantastic.
we only have 3 styles. We have the
How many more do you really need? To be honest, I mean, how many more than 3 do you need?
Yeah, exactly. But every second month, every 8th week, we launch 3 new styles and take the old 3 away. So you can buy that first set in early spring after Christmas, 3 models. That's all we sell. Once that's sold out, we only make 500 of each of that. Once that's sold out, there's completely new models coming after that. Because what I discovered when I did my research was that men buy 20 pairs of underwear a year. That's all they buy. And there's no fashion to it. And we're sacrificing our ass, honestly, into some cotton that can't keep the shape for longer than half a day. And why? Why do we do this to ourselves? Why can't we have underwear like women does? We need to step it up, man.
Yeah, I didn't know we were going to have this conversation today, but it's fascinating. This is fantastic.
Launch date July 1st. 3 stops.
Are you sure you don't want to do it on the 4th of July so you'll launch with a bang?
No, absolutely. It doesn't matter much. We have, and also the other thing too, what I learned over the years, because now I spent 25 years building brand for other people, is that it doesn't matter what you sell. It really doesn't. You can be successful selling anything under the sun if your story is good enough to listen. You have to be original in your story. That's where you put innovation in. You put your innovation and your originality into your story. Because if you stand for something, and if you dare to believe in something, just like IKEA did, like we're going to make cheap-ass furniture that lasts for 5 years and that everybody can afford, and it's going to be stylish like crazy. And nobody knows, for example, that IKEA has 80 designers, and 60 of those designers are famous designers around the world. They produce furniture for shit money because nobody gets a lot of payment. And they maybe get $2,000 for a new dining room table. That's what they get. But they want to have sold something on product at IKEA. That's the point for them. But IKEA, unique, original, stand for something, believe in something. Like that's a brand that you want to stand behind. Supreme sold a freaking brick for $80 that said Supreme. Like, who doesn't want to get that? Just because it's the silliest thing I can possibly buy. I spent $80 on a brick. What am I going to do with that brick?
Did you get that?
I did. Indeed, I did.
Did you get the hammer, by the way?
No, I did miss that one. Yeah. But so this is what I mean. It's like when a brand needs to have stand for an originality, especially today when everybody are the same. And when you use argument like I'm better than that person, the second you start comparing yourself to somebody else, you lost the game, because now you're telling everybody else that that person is actually really good, but I'm trying to be better. Skip everybody else. Just tell me your story. Tell me what you're good at, why you're doing this thing. Because at the end of the day, you and I are going to buy the underwear because you like the story I told. Like why I believe in underwear.
I'm not paying you for underwear. You're going to send me.
Oh, yeah, no. Yes. Okay. I'm going to tell you. The first model we're going to release is called the A game.
That's fantastic.
And the A game It's a slim fit model, short legs, because it's need to fit under a pair of suit pants the way suit pants should sit. Right. And when you sit down and you have your long ass boxer that go halfway down your thighs, what do you see through your pants? You see the bottom of your underwear. It's ugly.
It's
So
not a
we
good
cut
look.
them short, slim fit. Yep.
Are you going to
So
branch into socks as well?
no, not yet. Not yet. But no, I'll stick to underwear. Everybody needs it, and it's a fun product. So, but everything I learned, I'm pouring into this brand. I'm figuring out like, okay, if I tell this story, does that work? Or I tell that story, does that work? Like, I just want to experiment to see what actually hooks people onto it. Because like, who wants to spend $20 on a pair? And the second of all, like, who wants to buy merino underwear? But nobody knows that merino is the most antibacterial material. It holds to fit best. It fits 4 seasons because it can breathe and it adjusts to your body temperature. Put that in a pair of cotton underwear on 100% humidity day, and the competition is pretty clear who's winning.
Wow.
So nobody knows this stuff because nobody tells the story. Again, it's just tell your story.
It reminds me of the sheeps that we had at Brooks Brothers. That were, remember
Yes.
this story? Was it they had straight hair or curly hair, the sheeps?
Curly hair.
They curly hair. And then all the other sheeps that the industry was making sweaters from had the straight hair. And if I'm remembering this right, we had to go invent we own the entire species of these sheeps. Like we own all of them. And we had to go invent new looms because the looms that existed, were only for the straight-haired animal, and this was for the curly-haired animal. And they had to go in and do this. And it was amazing because we never told that story anything like as much as we should have, right? And we were out marketing a $300 wool sweater when the rest of the world, Uniqlo and whoever, $50, $59. But the truth is, ours would last like until the end of time, and they would just mold to your body and this and that. And we never told stories like that, like anything like as much as we should have. It's fascinating.
Yeah, and it's sad. Like a brand that lasted for 200 plus years, lost the capability of telling this simple story that we're going against the current, we're doing our thing. Yes, it's going to cost you more, but it's like a tag oil. You can give it to your son afterwards. He won't even lose his shape because of how the wool is done. Like, no, we never told that story. Like, how do you want somebody to believe in you unless you can be completely transparent about why you did it and why you're different?
And I remember the one year, our boss Claudio, he was interviewed, I think it was CNBC, asked him, look, cashmere sweaters are hot this year. At the time, I think J. Crew had a, I don't know, $99 one. Club might have had a $79 one. And they said, Claudio, you're out here asking $400 for a cashmere sweater. And Claudio had this phenomenal answer. And he said, look, I don't know how long $99 cashmere sweater is going to last, but I do know how long my $400 cashmere sweater will last. And I know that because I have customers that have been buying them from me for 20 years, and they still have the ones that they got 20 years ago. And that was such a fantastic answer. And then the poor guy asking the question, what can you say to that?
Yeah, nothing. Yeah, he really closed the loop on that one. Love that when you actually understand and appreciate the story behind something and the value of why somebody put all their effort into creating that product, you willingly pay the price.
Yeah. You're bringing me sort of full circle to this whole conversation, and you can measure everything today. Basically, you can measure pretty much anything you want to measure. But what's interesting is that as there's every conceivable way to talk to somebody, it just gets that much harder to measure where the actual lift is coming from. I've had basically to resort back to, yes, you look at the channel specific KPIs, and yes, they're all important, but you have to today ladder that back up to a very, very old school ad to sales ratio, right? Because you can attribute things however you want. It gets really muddy. Even with the best systems and best analytics and insights people, it gets muddy. So you're basically having to ladder this back up to just an old school ad to sales ratio to see right track, wrong track. And if it's right track, okay, what's working, and go do more of it, whatever. But I've basically gotten, into many different sets of KPIs. Like, like, hey, is my Amazon media, it's working. I'm advertising on Twitch or on Prime Video or on Thursday Night Football. Is that providing a lift out at Costco on the weekends? I mean, you can connect some of those dots today, but that's not something we were looking at 2 or 3 years ago. I'm just curious your thoughts on just how that part of the business is going.
I find it really weird sometimes, like how we are so curious about the data. Because again, to me, it goes a little bit back to often, like when I work with Google a lot and Meta, and they always say, okay, this is really great because it is the same as that brand. And that brand was successful, so you will be successful. But to me, that doesn't make any sense because I don't care about the other brand. I want to know what I did right and wrong here. But what I learned though was really good. It's like if you do a social campaign, you will see that it's stagnant after time. It fades out and stagnated and dies, right? And that goes back to in the past we used to do that one big campaign and we ran it until everybody was tired of it. But now we tweak and tweak and tweak as we go, almost on a weekly basis, and suddenly we never lose traction. So that's how I see our perspective on branding, is that our job is constantly tweak. And yes, it's really important to look at what are we successful with at other retailers. But here's where I struggle. You often have a wholesale section in a store, in a company, a team that works on wholesale. Then you have a team that works on retail. Then you have a team that works on e-com. And the three of them never talks. And that sucks. It should be, take this for example. I worked with Stephen Lagos, a jeweler in Philly. He was very technically talented and very good at designing. So he sold at Neiman Marcus, he sold at Bloomingdale's, and he sold at his own retail stores. And I looked at his business, and it was in Bloomingdale's and Neiman Marcus. He was like almost performing at the David Yurman level with a lower price point. So his turn was extremely fast. So I said, that's where your audience is. So now I went back and we sat in this little design studio, and in there was a big cabinet of all prototypes, like one of a kind. And he said, yeah, I sit on like $3 million in wholesale here. So not retail, we're talking wholesale price. So that's roughly a $10 to $12 million in retail. Sat there. I said, okay, let's do this. We're going to do one of a kind trunk show in all Neiman Marcus personal shopper stores, because that's where your audience is. And we travel with that. We took the trunk, and you can imagine the selling arguments. Yes. Do you have this one in other colors? No. This is
No.
gone. Like we sold for almost $500,000 at each location in less than 4 hours. So that he figured out that that's where my audience is and that's where I'm going. And it's the same thing like you said about Costco. When you see traction somewhere, lean into that and utilize that channel, even if it's not yours, because that's what the customer looks at you, the way you want them to look at
The orchestration, I'll tell you, some brands and some businesses really get it. There's a lot, and it's shocking. Like I talk to brands like you do all the time. Does this part of your org talk to that? No. Like, are they in the same build? No. Do they? Like, it's amazing, but I got to tell you, and you know this better than anybody. That's where the magic happens.
you.
Like,
Yes.
if you don't have orchestration between the visual folks at retail, between the digital people, the merchandisers, the planners, the supply chain guys, the finance people. Like, if you don't have an orchestration, you're only going to get so far, and you're never going to create what you were great at, which is magic. And you walk into a Brooks Brothers back in the day, you walk into an Oakley shop, and there was like this pixie dust that was just over like the stores. And then where you were, you had deep connectivity to the digital people, and we were able to really synthesize all that. And I'll tell you, you start to feel that, in the
Yeah.
P&L after a little while.
Yes, you
You
do.
become sticky, and you become, you're selling into adjacencies. You mentioned IKEA, like, wow. I mean, yeah, dining room, fantastic. But like, guess what? These people also have, I don't know, shoes. They need shoe racks. They need, hangers, God knows. These guys were masterful back in the day at sort of innovating into selling into adjacencies at, awesome price points, but really making the customer feel like they're buying something unique and special.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I think that it's psychology. Like what we deal with as brand marketers or working with brands and developing business is that we work with human psychology. That's ultimately what we're playing with. And what I learned over the years is that deja vu as a concept is extremely important. So if I see something on social, I see something on brand.com, like when I show up in the store and recognize that I saw over here in a new environment, I feel at home and I feel trust and I feel like, oh, wow, that is for me. Suddenly it all connects the dots for the customer psychologically. And then suddenly it becomes a purchase. So because now if I keep consistency between different things, and consistency as a human behavior is one of the biggest important factors in a relationship between two people, is consistency. If you're consistent in your relationship, any other partner you have, friend or married wife or husband, like they feel trust in you and your relationship grows. Same goes for brand to customer. If you can create a deja vu and you have a consistency in your presentation, it's very clear what you stand for. Like Ralph Lauren has been good at that.
There's
Yes.
love running through that whole
Yeah.
thing as well.
Exactly. And the line of expression is horizontal, not vertical. And I think that's really important too, because once I can see things consistency over time or over a line through my life, I feel a connection to that brand. And Ralph has always, in my opinion, been very good at that. Like he has core items that he will never stop selling, the polos and the shirts, and he style every mannequin the same way he styles the models online. So there's a consistency in how it looks, and then I can connect to it. He doesn't use that many top celebrities. He used normal people because now I feel a connection. I can look just like that guy online. All of a sudden it's approachable for me. It's
Yeah.
attainable.
And they were magical. What they invented, 60s, 70s, all the way through today. I mean, that was magical how they did all that.
Think about it for a fact. Ralph Lauren looks like an old brand. Ralph Lauren looks like he's been around like Brooks Brothers for years, but he hasn't. And that's the thing. He created a story that people could connect to and felt that it was relevant for them. And he has that heritage legacy approach, but it's not that freaking old, his brand.
Isn't that
So I
amazing?
love that. He looks like a Brooks Brothers, but he's like, what, 50 years old as a brand?
Yeah, and he's famously palling around with the Queen, with the new King. I mean, like that by the osmosis, it just creates that just like that legacy, that heritage. It's
Yeah.
there, but it's not
Yes.
there. And
Yeah.
it's honestly it's ingenious, and like, none of that's accidental, by the way. I mean, that's
No.
heavily choreographed.
Yeah. Yeah. So one thing I thought about, so when Ingvar Kamprad started IKEA, and no, before he started IKEA, he was 14. He has dyslexia. He was completely useless in school, and the teacher told his parent that all the time. But one thing he loved was to connect to people. So he started going to his neighborhood and selling pencils before school started because everybody needed pencils, right? That was the first week. Second week, he shows up with a pencil sharpener. Third week, he shows up with the eraser. Now, every family that bought the pencils are going to need the eraser, are going to need the sharpener. So he knew that if I can sell one thing to that customer, I can sell a second, a third, and a fourth, and a fifth. And the whole IKEA concept is built on the same principle that if I can get one product into their bag, I can get multiply after. So if you come up the escalator to an IKEA store, there's big bins there, right smack in front of your way, big bins, right? They're called open the wallet product because what it does psychologically
is how they call that.
Yes, you pull one, and the second you see that cheap ass product there, you take one of them. Now your mindset is completely into shopping. Instead of just browsing through these living rooms that makes no sense to you initially, you need to get the customer to open their wallet. So you think about retailer, they put their best fashion in the front with the big mannequins that are completely unattainable for me, and I can't afford half of it. No, if you really want people to shop, you put your cheap shit first, and it's going to move.
That's
IKEA
fascinating.
lose 20%. No, they lose money on, I don't know exactly how much, but they lose money on every sofa they sell. Every sofa costs more to develop than it costs to sell it. So, but they know that the second a customer see a home furniture store without a sofa, they're not going to believe shit that you know anything about home furniture. So they put the sofas in the front room, because now that it's like, oh, they understand fashion, or it's comfortable and all that. But what really sells in the sofa department are the pillows and the throw blankets, because everybody can afford them.
Big margin.
Yes, huge margin. So it's that connecting high to low and get something into everybody's basket as soon as possible, and you start making money. Now, when are we going to translate that thinking to a website?
You know, it's fascinating. I have been long since a proponent of, candidly, I don't care where they buy, because the overhead that you have, yes, in theory, you have much longer margins on a D2C website than you do, say, shipping or selling into a Walmart or into an Amazon. But the reality is you have overhead that doesn't exist on your brand.com site that you don't have, selling into Walmart. So at the end of the day, I mean, I don't care where she buys, so long as she does, and so long as the media that I'm sort of investing in is facilitating that and helping to make that happen. You bring an interesting point up about, Mr. IKEA and getting, the kid to buy the second and the third thing. By the time the kid bought the second and third thing, he already knew Mr. IKEA really well. And it probably was like unbelievably easy once he sold him the pencil. Like, hey, wouldn't it be nice if you had a device that could, sharpen it? Yeah, please. Now I trust him even more. And by the way, a week later, wouldn't it be even better that all these, mistakes you've made, because you're a bright, industrious guy, you've done lots, but you've made some mistakes, you can erase? Yes. Like, it's the easiest sale there is, right? And, everybody, in our space gets really, really lathered up on cost of acquiring a new customer and this and that. But like, if you treat the customers you have really well, and you've got adjacencies that make sense to them, it's unbelievable. It's not hard to sell them a second, third, fourth, fifth product. And by the way, and I'm curious your thoughts on this, everybody's running around big data, AI, yes, all day long. But what's that mean, right? Is, how many brands out there, I haven't seen too many, that are taking this mountainous data and saying, hey, Mr. and Mrs. New Product Development Team, did you know that Kristoffer's out there looking for this? He bought this, but he's looking for this. You don't make this. You should go make it. I haven't seen anything like as much of that out there that you'd sort of expect to see.
No, I work a lot with AI from the standpoint that it's a tool for me to sketch, it's a tool for me to research, it's a tool for me to start the creative process. But at the end of the day, it is only a generalist perspective on reality. So you still always have to apply your own lens. You know your customer better than AI, any AI will, because AI takes on customers and say, this is what they want. Yes, everybody, but you don't sell to everybody. So how do you expect everybody to connect? It's the same thing as trying to be somebody that's going to be friends with everybody. It doesn't work. You have to pick what is your niche. You have to pick what are your friends and stick with them. And I love what you said about this. Why don't focus on the customer you already have versus acquire new customers? Because it's just like, here's my 15 friends I had since I was 12. And here's 5 new people that I don't know anything about that I want to make friends with. Yeah.
You have 50 friends. You have 50 friends.
I have maybe wishful thinking. Yeah.
You start giving underwears out, by the way, you're going to have a lot.
But are they a real friend, or they just want underwear, Okay, last story. Branding, right?
Yes.
My dad always said to me, like, you have to decide what is it your brand's going to look like when you're 60. You have to decide that at 30 and then work towards that. So you shift over the ages, but you have a clear vision of where you want to be there. And I think often about Matthew McConaughey when he said at the Oscars that his hero, his idol, is himself 5 years forward. My dad has kind of just a little bit longer perspective. But the thinking of where do I want to be, or what do I want to accomplish in the long run, is a really important thing for a brand. Because then you stop chasing the dollars on a day-to-day basis. You stop reducing prices and doing discounts, because I will be here at the end of the day, 3, 5, 10 years from now. That is my goal. And then you work your way there, and it's going to go up and down, but that's life. I think it's a very healthy mindset to think long perspective versus chasing sales number on a day-to-day basis as a brand.
It's so true. And you know, the sort of like, you know, merry-go-round of discounting, you know, that becomes, and it's impossible to get off. I mean, the retail landscape of America is littered with brands that just could not get off of that sort of addiction, quite honestly. And it's
Exactly.
that's tough stuff.
It's so dangerous. It's so dangerous.
Christopher, my
All right,
friend,
my man.
always a pleasure. It's fantastic spending, you know, the last hour or so with you, and look forward to running into you soon. And best of luck. By the way, when can the ladies and gentlemen buy Banana Hammocks?
Only men, and it's going to be July 1st. You'll
Ladies,
get
would
information.
ladies buy them? No, for the men.
Absolutely, they can absolutely do that.
So
That
July
is not
1st.
bad at all. What's that?
So July 1st.
July 1st, we're launching it on bhammock.com. It's going to be for the first.
Are you autographing the initial run? I heard that.
Yeah, maybe. What we're doing is the A game is built around that you want to hit second base with your date or your future wife that you go to dinner with. And the show starts once you drop your pants. That's when the A game starts. So what we are launching the A game with is a plexi box that you can hang it up on the wall and say, these were the underwear I wore when I proposed to my wife. So you can really remember the A game as your true underwear when you accomplish something.
And have you asked some of the ladies out there whether they'll allow this in their home once they get married to the gentleman?
Absolutely not. But I think it's going to be a success. It's my brick. It's Supreme's brick. I got a plexi box to display your underwear.
That's fantastic. I'll tell you, anybody out there that wants to get a TED Talk in disruption in a very, very, you know, sort of established industry that isn't necessarily known for it, there it is right there. That's phenomenal.
That's a good word. Phenomenal.
Bye.
Bye.